Hello and welcome to the Responsibility We Carry Athletic Support Service Learning Series. I am your co-host, Travis Ballard, and I currently serve as the N4A ECC Institutional Partnership Program Chair. And our other co-host is Mr. Quadro Steele, who serves as our co-chair for the ECC IPP Committee. And I want to also shout out Ms. Lucy Mason, who serves as our Learning Series co-producer and Director of Video Production and Editing. In honor of Father's Day, fathers and father figures across the intercollegiate athletic and professional sports field, we bring you part 2 of our learning series entitled Fatherhood. And we have a tremendous leader with us today, a catalyst in the intercollegiate athletic industry, and more importantly, an incredible husband, father, and humanitarian, someone who I have great admiration for, Mr. Derek Cowherd, Associate AD for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the University of Louisville.
Certainly appreciate it. I was wondering who you're going to have on today because they did not sound like me.
Let me tell you, Travis and I have been competing in terms of introduction. You make you feel like, you know, you a superstar, a pastor, you know, starting 5 and all that in one. I try to one-up them. I'm not going to necessarily be able to one-up on one of the titles. I want to tell you something about Mr. Derek Cowherd. That's a guy that knows everybody. You know, have you ever been somewhere and just seen a name and you like, well, I know the name, I think I know the person. And then when you meet the person, you like, that's why your name is everywhere, right? So, you know, something crazy happened to me at N4A. I randomly met somebody, you know, just walking through the hall, and she was telling me she was Associate AD of like, Title IX at UCLA. She's talking and she goes, yeah, I played tennis at Louisville. And I'm like, I think we about the same age, you know, maybe so. And then I look at my man's Facebook page. One of my students, my he's got this tree of students. It's like 62 pictures of people he worked with over time. I'm like, this man is the man that knows everyone, that has produced everyone. Obviously a son of Louisville, having played there and spent so much, you know, giving back to that community is with, but also time at LSU, Mississippi, the Ohio State University. I mean, a man that is decorated and a snazzy dresser on top of that. If you catch him after hours, be prepared to go check your wardrobe because you ain't rocking right. So, Derek, welcome.
It's an honor to be with you all. And I think when you say you know everyone, you're starting to get really old. And a lot of us came to that conclusion at this year's NACDA. But it's an honor to know so many people and know that you're standing on those shoulders. That's really, you know, people use that too often, but we're truly standing on the shoulders of everything everyone else built. And I just want to honor it and make sure that I always thank all those people and give flowers before and after, you know, so it just means a lot. So thank you.
We'll get right into this, Brother Derek. There always seems to be some type of debate around what it means to be a present father. You know, how do you define what it is to be a present father? And do you find the demands of your job make it difficult to meet that standard?
No question. I'm not going to sit here and say I was ever perfect coming up, but I witnessed what I witnessed growing up as my dad was a coach for 33 years. He was a head coach. And when you are in a small Class A town with 400 people in your high school, you quickly believe that you are brothers and sisters with the other 399 because your dad is a teacher, your dad is a coach. They're always coming to your dad for things like shoes that their parents can't get them, or food after the game Friday night. And my dad took that on and I watched that. So I was like, that's one. Number 2, I saw that he was stern with folks and he would sit people, even if it was going to hurt the team. It was discipline, but that showed love and they always respected him. So that was 2. Like I just saw all these, and I was so blessed to have a great grandfather that I got to meet before he passed. And he was an upstanding man, even though he was barely 5 foot tall. And if you know me, I'm 6'2", and I'm still looking up at 7 foot Quadro, but I'm not short. I'm 6'2". So my great grandfather had this stature he had this really voluminous voice, and he was tiny, but he was still chopping wood at 93, and he could split it every time. And he had this song that he would sing to it. It was like amazing. So I saw this upstanding man that wanted to continue to work and continue to go to church every single day he could. So that was 3. I keep giving you these 3, 4, 5s, right? And then I had this great grandfather who would come home from work, and he worked all day to make sure that his wife didn't have to do day work or clean houses, because that's all they were allowed to do. So he made sure that she was taken care of and that she wanted for nothing, and whatever she wanted, he wanted to help facilitate whatever she needed. So that was 4, right? And I wanted to just kind of follow in their footsteps and never get them to be, just, I wanted them to know that they did right. And all they did was just do what they were supposed to do. They didn't do anything extra. They didn't sit me down and put me in a classroom. They just lived life, and they modeled the way. So that's I had all that as far as men go, but I also had a caring and nurturing mother, which is another part that we don't always talk about, because we have this toxic masculinity sometimes where we can't cry. Well, my dad cried a lot in front of me, and I never saw my grandfather really cry that much unless we were at church, and they were really avid, worshipers and spiritual people. So me going to church and seeing them be emotional allowed me to open that up and open that part of my psyche up and say it's okay to cry, it's okay to be emotional. So that was 6. Like I have hundreds of these, but when you're a father, it all I know everyone has said it before, but Mike Tyson said everyone has a plan until you get punched in the stomach. And that's true. When you're a father and you're holding that baby for the first time in that room, you're ready to put all that in motion. But you feel like a rock star, you feel excited, you feel scared, you feel alone, you feel happy, you feel all those emotions. And then you get to put it into practice. And sometimes we forget that there is that really soft side. So my mother was, and is, she worked in the banking system for almost 43 years. And she just always had the great customer service feel. Like people always came to her corner and her counter. And even when she moved to her office to be a loan administrator, they came to her office just to say hi, because she was going to brighten up your day no matter if she had a bad day or not. I don't know if she ever had a bad day in 43 years at the bank. Now, I saw some days when I grew up, but she didn't allow it to affect her love for us and her care for us. So that's another piece that I would add to that great question you had. But I will say, back to the presentness, when we're coming up, and Travis, when you're trying to move into this profession and trying to move up, and you're trying to prepare a place for your rising, and also protect your family, and also build generational wealth, and also provide leadership and security for the family. All those things are pretty heavy weights on a person's shoulders, and you don't have to do it alone. But for most men, you're taught that's your job. Everything else emotional is someone else's. But I had to start to dabble in that. And one thing I picked up that I did not get, because I always said I would if I had a child, was to be so present that when they're talking to me, just look them in the eye, give a little smirk, smile a little bit at their jokes. And that means so much more. I'm not sitting there just typing away, ignoring them like the 1950s madman, smoking a cigar or pipe after work. I am there present and I'm listening. And after we get out of church, I ask them what they thought about the service. I don't tell them or imprint what I want them to know. I ask them their thoughts. I look them in the eye when they're hurting. I let them feel it, because we can't shield them from everything. And then I help them get through. So being present to me means listening and actually remembering what they said, and maybe even bringing it up a little later, because I didn't necessarily get that, because the environment didn't call for that. It didn't allow for that way back then, because my parents had 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And my parents will always say they sacrificed. So that's probably number 7. They ate tuna fish every day, and that's no lie, for years, just so we could have everything we thought we needed. Not what we wanted, because we didn't have that, but we had every single thing we needed, and I never thought I was ever struggling.
I've got a question about energy. And you talked about working with students and your dad being a coach and how much energy that is to work with, really, we say other people's children. And in your position, you work with student athletes, you work with staff, and your energies are required in order to uplift them. How do you maintain enough energy or balance your energy for your children, and then add a little bit for yourself? How do you balance all of that when you know everybody needs that energy for them to grow?
That's a tough one. And no, it was not 62 students that I had worked with, but there are some really great people that I've been able to work with over the years. And I'm going to say selfishly, I loved every minute of my work, even the really rough cats. And if they watch, they'll know who they are, because they were really tough and they grew me in ways that I never thought. Because sometimes the most difficult and the most combative and the most angry person that you have to work with is the most rewarding in the end. Because in the end, you all understand each other, you respect where you came from on each side, and then you grow together. And I had so many of those guys that I reach out to now, and they're just so happy. They've got families, they've got they had everything that they never had growing up, and I'm just so proud of them. So back to the question, energy, I steal from others. I love their energy. So it's nothing for me to come in and pick up someone who has a little less energy than they should and ask them how they're doing and being present, kind of like Travis asked a little earlier. But also, I know to take some energy from someone who's coming in that does have really good energy. And for those that work in the field of academic support, as Travis and all of us did, it's a really, really thankless job, and it's really tough every day to come in and provide the same level of support every single day without a lot of top level support from administrators or coaches, because they have a job to do. They don't know what we're doing. So it's our job to help them understand what we do, not by complaining or wishing we had, but sharing and modeling the way again, to let them know that it takes this much for your student to come to the field every day and become their amazing self, and then to decompress somehow and come back and do some work they've never had to do before. Hard work in a system they've never had to operate in, that they're just frankly not good at, and then to wake up and do it all over again for 120 some days every single year. That's hard, and they don't get that. It's probably more than 120 days, but I just kind of broke it up into how many days were in a semester, and we had to do it twice. And in the summer it was reset time. So that's kind of how we went up the mountain and came back down. So that energy I stole from others and gave a little to some people that need it. And I took some from others that didn't need that much. And then I just kind of floated. Now, I did not talk about home, because my energy at home took me a while. I had to mature in that. But when you're going up the hill to try to be that senior associate AD, you don't feel like you have that time to take care of yourself. So I can honestly say I never really had a vacation except for 1 to 2 times. And that's on me. But I took that as a risk, and my high reward was to be able to reward my family with vacations to bowl games, to Disney, to even overseas, hopefully someday. That hopefully is going to build an opportunity for them. Whereas in the beginning, I wasn't, independently wealthy. There was no way I could do all those things. But when we did go off to try to have a vacation, people did not realize that you couldn't have a vacation being an academician. You just can't, not in athletics. Travis knows that 100%. They're going to call you every day. You can set all the boundaries you want, but if you're not available, they're going to go to somebody else. If they go to somebody else, well, maybe they don't need you, right? They can find someone else. So that's that thought of, if you're going to get to a place where you can really support your family and build generational wealth, you have to do it in your own way. And that's the way I chose. I'm not saying that's the only way, but I can go back and apologize, but I can also say, hey, we're living a little bit better than we could have been. And that's where I derive most of my energy.
That's an amazing and very vulnerable answer. I appreciate that. And actually answer my follow-up, which was, how do you reconcile that with your family, knowing that you gave up a lot of prime vacation years and time and energy with them? But it sounds like you've had those conversations of, I missed this, but this is why. Is that safe to say?
Absolutely. I think you have to take a whole lot of pictures at the places you do go, so that you can say, see, we went here, see, we went there. But we were on a couple of cruises, right? These weren't 7 days, but it was a tactical move. And for anybody that watches this, you can't necessarily get phone service unless you pay for it on a cruise. So if you tell them, hey, I'm going to be gone for 5 days or even 7, and my phone won't work, it's going to be shoddy. I'll check every time we land, which is once every 3 days. Here's a good plan. Here's a backup plan. Here's a succession plan if you need me. They are not going to need you for those 5 days, barring that you haven't gone out of town on finals week, which would never be the smart thing to do. So there's ways to get around it, but a lot of apologies is that answer.
And one thing I want to go back to was, you talked about vividly the external and internal weight of being a father, and then moving to now an administrator. I would love for you to dive in more to the implications and impact that moving jobs, particularly to another state, has on your family, and really get into how, how that takes a toll, not only on yourself, but how that impacts the family structure and your children.
I appreciate that question, and I hope my wife doesn't jump on and shut the whole thing down, because I've not been really great at this. And what I try to do is, and I think, I have some really great mentors. Alan Green is the one that kind of sticks out, and Peter Roby and Lynn Kaplan, and I could name 100 more like that. Kenneth Miles, Walt Holliday, all those people are either friends or colleagues or mentors. And if you do it right, they're not mentors anymore. They're just friends, and you check in on them. So Dr. Leonard Moore, I don't want to leave anybody out. There's at least 100. So with those folks in the back of my mind all the time, moving, you have to start with a map. And I think Alan said that to me. Just sit down with your partner, map out where you see you could go, and mark off the places where there's no way. And if you're looking to move, talk through it beforehand. My dad would say, create a list of pros and cons, and make sure they're weighted properly, and be realistic about what the opportunity is for the family. If it's just to move, then no one needs to do that, especially with children. If it's an opportunity, then great. So for those that are out there that are new to the field, hopefully you're going to watch, and you're going to know that they have several options for people that are traveling with spouses or partners. And they call it a traveling spouse policy. And a lot of HR programs in the SEC, Big Ten, the larger ones, they can call their provost or call a local attorney or whoever your spouse's or your partner's industry is, and try to get some type of lead to a position for them. And unless it's real, you don't take a chance on them getting something. So for each of my moves, my wife was able to choose whatever she wanted. She was very well accomplished. Obviously, she had only made one huge mistake, and that was to choose me. But the perfect thing for her was that she wanted to do communication. She had a law background, and she had an administration type position in admissions. and diversity. So for each of those, she was well-rounded in all three schools that we moved to together. We're able to choose and say, do you want this job? And for one of the jobs, I didn't even ask because she didn't want the help, but she could choose exactly what she wanted. She didn't get to name the salary. That would have been nice, but she got to choose the job that she wanted, which I thought was a no-brainer, but it was also the starting point, because if they didn't have that, I wouldn't. And one more thing for those young professionals, if you are doing your job right, they will come for you. You don't have to apply to one job. So each job that I've ever gotten and taken, I didn't even know the posting was there because it wasn't there. I got the call. And you're seeing that more and more each day. Now you have to know some people and you have to get out to do some conferences. But if your work is showing up, it's going to show up on conference standings. You're going to start seeing wins, because that, if we're all in athletics, we see what a dynasty is and we see what parts it takes to be successful. There's some major parts in there, and people always want to pull off those parts to try to recreate it. So that's what happened to me. So every single job that I've gotten, from LSU to Ole Miss to Ohio State, I have gotten a call about it. And there have been some I've missed on, but those major ones that were viable, I took that. And I'll just say that the toll that it takes on your family is hard to measure. It's hard to qualify and quantify. It is one of the toughest things that will ever happen. But if you look at it from a growth mindset, then it's not. You have an opportunity to grow. You have an opportunity to see another group of people in this world that are all just trying to figure it out. You've got an opportunity to find another food that you've never had that you can add to your palate. You've got an opportunity to see the sights of that area. You have an opportunity to see the sights that are around that area that help you get back to your old place. So if you have an abundance mindset, it's easy, it's great. But if you don't, or if you've had less success in an area, you can see how the shift of positivity can change that, right? You can hate the food. You can be homesick and miss that. And you can miss your culture. Or you can go back to the positive side and say, well, I love this positive side. Like when I went to LSU, they had so many festivals. They had a strawberry festival, a watermelon festival, a crawfish festival. Then they had all those parades. Man, I never had all that. The food was so different, but it was great. It was so hot down there. I was able to find a way to lose a little weight and eat even more somehow. And then when I went to Mississippi, they fried everything. They even fried the water down there. But it was so good. The people were rich. The people's conversation was interesting. You could slow down a bit. And at LSU, the difference was when you got off of work, it was probably 5:30 after you had gotten there at 6:45 in the morning. And then you had to sit in traffic because there was one lane on Lee Street and one other lane on the other. There's no way out of LSU. You see that. And I would get home around 6:15, and I was like, I've got to go back and be there in 12 hours. I've got to figure this out. So when I went home from Ole Miss, it was like, okay, I'm leaving. It's about 5, but how are the lights already off? It's 4:30. Okay. So we're going to go home at 5. And by the time I sat in traffic, got some food for the kids, picked them up, I was home by 5:15. I don't know how that happened, but we were able to do that. And you had all of that time from 5:15 until about 8 or 9, because it was just a laid back. Now we still won a lot, but it was just a different feel. And then I won't even bring up Ohio State. That is a huge, huge university with a large number of people. So I had to grow my skill set that way. But I just felt like it was sharpening my axe a bit to do all those things. So it's all in how you approach it. The energy it takes, it does take a toll on the family, but I think it's all in communication. And I will not say that I did it well at all, but I'm still trying to apologize and atone and hopefully give them a few things and the spoils of those great moves to help them understand that without that, we wouldn't be where we are.
Can you give a quick set of tips and tricks for getting kids to deal with those moves? Because you talked about learning the positives of each place. Did you actively, talk to your wife and kids about things that, got them through those pieces? So if their professionals are looking at moving, what are some things that help your kids and your wife acclimate to those moves?
I'll be quick because I was terrible at it. So I think the first is to definitely talk through everything and not just be like a one-person show that's just pulling everybody in a red wagon behind them. You have to be vulnerable and open up and say, this is what I want to do, this is why, and this is how it's going to benefit you. I don't think you could ever be good in this field unless you could realize the win-win in every relationship that you have. So when you're talking to that student athlete that doesn't want to buy in, that doesn't believe in doing work yet, you have to show the win-win. And that was easy for me. It's to say, hey, when you make all these millions, I want you to come back and get me. But right now, I need you to know that you have to study this, because you're going to have to study a playbook that's way harder than you've ever seen in the pros. So if they all believe they're going pro, which 99% do, that's all they can hear at that moment. And then you say, well, let me try this. Do you want to start a business after you get out? Oh, yeah, I definitely want it. 99% want to start a business. So the win-win for the kids is, hey, and I never stooped as low to say, I'll get you a dog if we move. I never did that. But I will say there were things for them that they could look forward to, like a bigger house, a bigger yard, a better neighborhood, more friends. And it's even better when you catch them when they're having a bad day and say, see, don't you want to move? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. So I would say, my kids were young. The key is to move while they're young if you're going to move. And then you need to settle and make home. And if you can get your family there, or make it where when you mark off those spaces in the United States or abroad that you want to go to, you have to know that some of them you can't get to your family, and you have to make up for that in some way. And if you can stay close to your family, which I found important, that's why I haven't worked on the West Coast. Nothing wrong with the West Coast. I love the West Coast. But as my parents age and our parents age, I want to be sure that the kids are around their grandparents and they've been able to really enjoy them the whole time. So the win-win is keeping them near their family. And kids are resilient, as you know. They will be just fine. They can go to a playground and pick up 10 new friends in 5 minutes. So you can't just sit there and think that they're going to be really, really sad. Now, as they get older in middle school and high school, you need to consider settling down. But in those early years, kids are so resilient. You have to bank on that they're going to be able to adjust. And I think it grows them anyway.
I'll give you some credit or understand you have others that feel that way in this industry. Dr. Ivana Rich, who we interviewed earlier, talked about her committing to being an AD and taking that path early, all because of her daughter. So she said, I'd sacrifice now so that we can have later. So both our mothers and our fathers do understand in this field that sometimes when you make that choice for upward mobility, that you're doing it for your family in mind. So again, you're echoing everything we've heard from both sides. A quick question about surprises. You talked about a lot of things that you see in the industry. As a dad, what's one of the biggest surprises you've had being a working father in the industry?
It is hard. That's the biggest surprise. If you go out there and you play football, I know you played basketball and you're very good at it. But was there ever an opponent you went up against? No, I know, I'm talking to you. So have you ever seen a teammate that had to go up against someone that was just housing them, just getting them? They could, everything they tried, nothing could work, because I know you never had that. But if you had a teammate that struggled, sometimes you have to shoulder that load with somebody and help them out. While it's easy for you, you got to lean on someone else. But it was hard. So that first time I held my son, I was so proud. But I said in my mind, something just spoke to me and said, now what are you going to do? What are you doing? And everything after that moment, it changed. So everything I had done to be a big brother to all these great student athletes, or really cool uncle, that they would stop by every day and check on and make sure I'm doing okay. It changed immediately for me to say, well, I'm dealing with people's lives. And I always knew that, but I didn't realize how much your heart grows when you have a child, or it should grow. And that your part of your heart is beating in another person and you feel it. And there's a tug all the time. So you're always thinking about someone else. So obviously I'm going to use that. I'm one of those people that loves that movie Castaway. Every time it comes on with Tom Hanks, I watch it because I pick up something new every time. It's just to see him and his metamorphosis to try to just survive on that island. He has to use everything that island has to offer. And that's what I do in a space that's difficult. So when I found myself with a young child and a new wife and a house payment, and I had to still work, I pulled from that energy to go back to the energy question. And I never once said I don't want to get up. I was getting up before my alarm clock because I knew I had to hustle. Now back to Dr. Rich, I would say she has it right on the head. We are some crazy people that we think we can sacrifice now and just assume that we're going to live better later. But, you know, tomorrow's never going to be promised for anybody. So you're taking a huge amount of risk at that time. And what you're giving away is that opportunity to really connect and bond with your family and be there. So it's just a choice, right? That's the hard part. That's the biggest surprise of how much I had to put my family to the side while I was working so hard for us to be able to go to 2 national championships and win one of them, go to a SEC championship and stay the whole week and have 2 rooms and be able to watch us win it all. Like, those are moments we'll never forget. But when you just go home and have a steak on the back porch with your family, that's really powerful too. So I had to give up some of those just so we could go to a Final Four, or we can go to this big resort and just have a really good time on the company's dime. It's always fun, right? But you're missing out on those really quiet times where it's just you and the family at a reunion, just, you know, tossing the football around or the Frisbee, or just, those are times that you'll always miss. But again, you have to balance that. And that's what I've tried to do. But I'll just say that's the biggest surprise, is how hard it was. There's no question how hard parenthood was, but also in the field that we are in, it's like going up against that opponent that has every answer to everything that you ever had.
I definitely got beat up every practice, so I know exactly what you're talking.
You know, one thing that I've noticed already, and I've noticed in the past, is your authenticity, brother, and transparency about your lived experiences. As we know, there are many historical stigmas and preconceptions that come with fatherhood, particularly Black fatherhood. However, we don't acknowledge enough, in my opinion, about the positive aspects of fatherhood. Thus, how has fatherhood positively impacted your professional career?
That's a really good question. There are several stigmas, but it's impacted me by knowing that I have to keep pushing forward, and that I am proving a lot of those stigmas and viewpoints of people that are really misinformed, honestly. They're really misinformed if they don't realize the Black family is one of the key bedrocks of this nation, and how it started and how it continues to grow. Black fatherhood, if you just do the stats and read them, I won't go over stats for you, but you know that that's one of the strongest attributes of the United States. It just is, and all over the world. So how's it impacted me? You know it when you see it. You don't know how to define love, but you know when you're in love. You don't know how to define real happiness or joy, but you sure know it when you feel it. So when you're seeing a father and his family really doing it big in a grocery store, it warms your heart. And people stop and watch us all the time. And I wouldn't be human if I didn't share that every single time we were in those smaller places, even in the larger cities, if we were having a good time, And we were in the grocery store and the kids were pushing the cart and I was laughing and they were laughing. Now, I can't fit in the cart anymore, but both of my kids, as large as they are, they're almost as tall as, they're coming up to me now at 9, 10 and 11, 10, 12, and they want to get in the cart. So I'm going to let them every time. So we have a really good time. So we always get the compliment, like, your kids are so wonderful. In church, your kids are so well-mannered. They act so well. Well, we had practice at that. We went every single time we absolutely could. So they don't feel out of place when we're out in the world, in the grocery, in church, wherever, at a game. They know how to handle themselves. And that, to me, is my contribution to making a better place for them, because I'm hoping when it's their turn, they do the same. And then somebody saw that, they can say, well, that's how I want my family to be when it's finally time for me to do it. So I don't have a real great answer for that, but you know, there's a lot of research out there that shows that Black fatherhood is on the rise and the percentages are higher than people might think, but you wouldn't know that from all the movies we see and all the stories we see. I would like to see more mentorship from us to those who are fatherless, because fathers are necessary. I think people that are appreciative of a man's presence in a relationship, that kind of took a hit for a while for all those folks that just wanted to be so independent and say that that wasn't needed. I think they realize now that it's needed, even if it's not easy. That person needs to be in their life, and that's for women and men. That's not just like, everybody needs both of those. Everybody needs that focus. Everybody needs the partners, two of them, even if it's in different states. It's just got to be where people are together. So if the two partners are together and they can make it work, it's just powerful. But if they can't, then by all means, I feel like having two perspectives is much better than just one. And it gives that one a time to rest and regroup. And that one shouldn't have to do it alone. And for those that do leave the house and don't look back and help theirs, that's where that mentorship should come in, and we should be helping those mothers and fathers that do have single parent households.
You know, in my time knowing you, not only are you a great father and husband, I also see you at conferences and the impact that you have on people, and people look at you as a father figure. And so I want to get, how has that status of being a father figure to college athletes, talk about those experiences, but talk about how, that has truly, impacted you.
That's tough, because I just realized that last week. I don't feel as though I'm a father figure yet, because there's just so many people out there that have done it at a higher level and are older than me, quite frankly. But I'm getting older, and I realize I know a whole lot of people, because I was on some staffs where we had larger staffs. We believed in, we weren't paid a lot, but we had a dream team at each place that I was. So I worked in a place where we had 15, which was unheard of in the 2000s. Then I went to a place where we could have 21. And then I went to a place where we could have 25. And I worked at another place where we could have 35, all in academics. So that is going to breed a lot of good collaboration. And hopefully it trains a whole group of others to go on and start their own programs and lead it the way we did. So that's my trick of knowing so many people. But embracing that role is something I'm still working on, to be honest. I don't think of myself as that. I just feel like I was a good friend. I never wanted to be called a boss, and I never wanted to be called a manager. I don't even want to be called a leader. I just wanted to be called Derek. There's a story behind that real quick. My grandfather was a really upstanding person. He served in the World War II supply clerk area, and he actually helped. He got to see all the Tuskegee Airmen because he had a leg issue that wouldn't allow him to fly planes, but he wanted to. So he became the best supply clerk that you could become. And even the white soldiers that would call him boy and look down at him knew he was the best supply clerk in the whole group, in a whole squadron in Mississippi. So he got to see all the Tuskegee Airmen, which was really cool. Is when he passed, they presented him with the Tuskegee Airmen honorable plaque, which meant everything. My dad sat and cried for hours about that because that was really special to have some Tuskegee Airmen honor my grandfather. So to the point where he lived his whole life that way. He went on to work in a company where he was the first Black foreman and the first Black supply clerk, and he was the best. They moved him all over the South to try to help those companies get started. And as he retired, one of his best friends who was white, who was working with him, we were going through that change of, are you Black, are you Negro, he's lived through all that, right? Are you African American? He never got to the African American side. But the guy that was introducing him said, hey, so, I just known you for this long time. How should I introduce you? Should I say this Black man? Should I say this Negro? He's like, George would be just fine. So when I say that, I try to be just fine with who I am and just be that guy that is there as a resource. And if you need me, I'm there, but I'm not going to over welcome myself. If I'm there, I'm needed. But if I'm not, I'm in the back celebrating you. I'm watching you shine. So when those folks that went on from those areas where I was the senior associate AD and director, I'm so proud of them. I could watch them all day. And if they never say that they worked under me or learned under me, I'm happy because I see what they're doing and I see how they're doing it. And I know that we made an impact in their life. So it's easy for me. I love watching other people be successful. I'm not a hater in that way. So I really love it. And I'll say, I don't know if I've ever received tickets to a pro game. I have a list of maybe 250 student athletes that have gone on to be pro. And I had an intern put it together, and shout out to Seth who put it together. We called it the Seth Report. And I showed every single person that I worked with, from Odell Beckham Jr. to Juice Landry to Barkevius Mingo, for all those guys. And that from every year, we had 20 or so guys and ladies in the pros that ran in track. They created this report to show. And I don't know if I've ever received a ticket to one of their games, but I've never wanted to. I've never asked them for it. And I'm just so proud of what they're doing. They never came back and gave me the $100,000 Breitling watch, but I didn't expect that. And I think that was why our relationship, I'll still accept it. I can use NIL deals myself, but I'll say that the need was never there to take anything from them because they had been taken from so much. And that's why I think they really appreciated me.
So we're going to get you out of here on 3 rapid fire questions. All right. So the key is speed and continued authenticity. We've loved this segment.
Okay.
All right. First one, in honor of Father's Day. What is a chore that you have, and I'm talking cutting grass, cleaning gutters, that your staff and students wouldn't believe that you do?
All the laundry. 7 loads every time I get home.
I'm a laundry man too, brother. Salute.
Yeah. I don't understand, but I think that they do a wardrobe change. They blow a whistle while I'm not there and go through 3 wardrobe changes every day.
Absolutely. How are you writing your own story?
Man, where'd you get that question? Allowing others to contribute.
Lastly, what's a responsibility that you carry that you wouldn't give up?
The hard work of doing the things that no others will do.
Mr. Cowherd, I know Travis will close it out, but I want to tell you something. There was an article released today how LeBron James is changing the outlook on fathers. They obviously haven't watched this series. There are plenty of men like yourself out there shattering those stereotypes of fatherhoods. I honor you. This is probably the longest conversation we've had, and I see why you have the respect you do in the industry, and I know the respect that you have with your family. So thank you for being with us today.
If I could say thank you for allowing me to be, I really enjoy you all's back and forth. It's amazing. I watched a couple of other series, and I'm just proud of what you're doing, because this needed to be done. There was a void there. So I love that you are filling this void with real great positivity.
Again, I appreciate your authenticity. One of the things that I took from this that you had mentioned is, regardless of your status, whether you're an entry-level worker, whether you're, a father figure to many, it's not always about your title, it's about your impact. And I really appreciate your impact on people, regardless of where you've been at in life. And we'll go ahead and close this out. I'd be remiss if we didn't name our tremendous, partners. I want to acknowledge the ECC subcommittees that have supported this initiative. Our current ECC chair, Brother Ramon Cooper, has been awesome to us, and our incoming ECC chair member, Ms. Jacqueline Taylor. One of our previous interviewees, Ms. Shanika Mungeon, who was also featured in our Motherhood series and is an M4A Board of Directors member, has been an awesome supporter. And the individuals on this call as well, one of my great mentors, Ms. Jackie Nicholson, who has served as our M4A president for the 22-23 year. We just want to thank everybody for their support. Until next time, take care.